If humanity was never extinct, what truth have they guarded for 50,000 years against the galaxy itself? The signal came like a whisper from the void, faint but unyielding, clawing at the edge of Kael Vexis's consciousness. It pulsed through the static of his ship's comms, a rhythm that felt alive, almost predatory, emanating from the hollow core, a forbidden expanse where no star dared burn. Kael, a towering figure scarred by battles and betrayal, leaned forward in his command chair, his red bronze Zorathian armor glinting under the dim cockpit lights. His right eye, a cold optic lens, whirred as it parsed the signal's origin, locking onto coordinates no sane captain would chase. The hollow core was a galactic taboo, sealed by the Galactic Council's iron decree, its secrets buried under threats of annihilation. Yet Kael, a deserter haunted by a blood-soaked past, felt the signal's pull like a noose tightening around his soul. "We're going in," he declared, his voice rough, cutting through the murmurs of his crew. The decision was reckless, but Kael Vexis never ran from truth, no matter how sharp its edges. The Zorathian warship, Iron Veil, hummed as it breached the boundary of the hollow core. The void here was absolute, a starless abyss that swallowed light and hope alike. Kael's crew, a hardened band of mercenaries, shifted uneasily at their stations. Tass, a wiry sharpshooter with a nervous tick, muttered about council enforcers. "They'll burn us for this, Captain," he said, fingers twitching over his rifle's grip. Kael ignored him, focusing on the sensor readings. Ahead, a structure loomed, an immense lattice of organic metal, its surface pulsing like a heartbeat. It was no mere station. It breathed, its contours shifting as if aware of their approach. The colossal structure loomed in the hollow core's void, a lattice of organic metal stretching miles across, its surface pulsating with a rhythmic living glow. Its jagged spires twisted upward, resembling veins of a cosmic beast, glinting faintly under the Iron Veil's floodlights. Black fluid seeped from its seams, pooling and evaporating into mist that clung to the air like a warning. To Kael, it felt less like a construct and more like a slumbering entity, watching, waiting, its purpose etched in every shuddering breath it took. The crew fell silent, their breaths shallow as the Iron Veil docked against the structure's gaping maw. "Suit up," Kael ordered, his voice steady despite the dread coiling in his gut. "Whatever's in there, we face it." Inside, the air was thick, metallic, carrying a faint hum that vibrated in their bones. The corridors stretched endlessly, walls glistening with a sheen that seemed to writhe under their torchlights. Kael led the way, his boots clanging against the floor, each step echoing like a challenge to the silence. The team moved in tight formation, weapons drawn, their shadows dancing across surfaces that pulsed faintly, as if the structure itself were alive. After navigating a maze of twisting passages, they entered a vast chamber. Rows of translucent pods, thousands, perhaps millions, lined the walls, each containing a human figure suspended in a pale, glowing fluid. Not corpses, Kael realized, his optic eye zooming in. Their chests rose and fell, impossibly slow, locked in a slumber deeper than death. "Humans," whispered Lyra, the team's medic, her voice trembling. "They're supposed to be extinct." Before anyone could respond, one pod hissed, its surface cracking open like a hatching egg. A woman emerged, her skin a ghostly gray, her long white hair cascading over shoulders wrapped in self-mending fabric, etched with spiraling DNA motifs. Her eyes, black voids without whites, locked onto Kael, unblinking, piercing through him. The crew froze, weapons raised, but she moved with a calm that disarmed their instincts. "I am Nirasul," she said, her voice low, resonant, carrying a weight that made the air feel heavier. "You've trespassed into the hollow core. Why?" Kael stepped forward, meeting her gaze, his scarred face unyielding. "We followed a signal. It called us here. Who are you? Why are humans sleeping?" Nira's lips curved, not a smile but a grimace of ancient pain. "We are not victims," she said. "We are the gatekeepers, and you've just knocked on a door that should have stayed locked." Tass, his nerves fraying, swung his rifle toward the nearest pod. "This is a trap," he shouted, finger twitching on the trigger. Before Kael could stop him, a pulse of plasma tore through the pod, shattering its surface. The figure inside didn't stir, but the chamber reacted. The walls shuddered, a low groan echoing as black, viscous fluid seeped from the cracks, pooling on the floor. It coalesced, rising into a formless mass of liquid metal, shifting and reshaping until it stood taller than Kael, its surface rippling with purpose. A voice, or thousands of voices, erupted from it, layered and dissonant, like a choir of the damned. "Infection detected," it intoned, its form stabilizing into a humanoid shape, sleek and predatory. "The lie must be excised." Kael's crew stumbled back, weapons trained on the entity. Nira's face paled, her voice a whisper. "You've woken the surgeon. The echo. It will cut the lie from us all." The chamber pulsed with a new rhythm, urgent and hostile. The echo's form flickered, its surface splitting into tendrils that lashed out, narrowly missing Tas. Kael grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Fall back, now!" he barked, his mind racing. The signal, the pods, Nira's cryptic words, it was all connected, and he'd stumbled into something far bigger than a mercenary's gamble. Nira moved swiftly, her fingers dancing over a nearby console, its symbols glowing under her touch. "You don't understand what you've done," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The Echo was built to protect the truth, and it sees lies everywhere." Before Kael could demand answers, the Iron Veil's comms crackled to life, a council enforcer's voice cutting through. "Vexis, you've violated core protocol. Neutralize the threat, or we will." Kael's optic eye whirred, scanning the chamber as the Echo advanced, its form shifting with each step, adapting to their movements. The crew's weapons fired, but the plasma bolts dissolved against its surface. Useless. Nira's black eyes met Kael's, a silent plea buried in their depths. "The truth will chase you," she said, echoing his own words from a life he tried to bury. "No matter how far you run." The walls bled faster now, the black fluid spreading, and Kael realized they had seconds before the chamber became a tomb. He gripped his rifle, his mind torn between retreat and the burning need to understand. The hollow core wasn't just a relic, it was a cage, and he'd just rattled its bars. The chamber's air grew heavier, the walls' pulsing rhythm quickening as Nira's soul stood before Kael Vexis, her black eyes unyielding, her voice cold and deliberate, cut through the hum of the hollow core. 50,000 years ago, humanity found a truth too heavy to bear, she said, her fingers tracing the DNA motifs on her self-mending robes. "Our DNA is the lock that binds the Devourer, a cosmic entity that hungers for existence itself. If we awaken, the lock breaks and it consumes the galaxy." Kael's optic eye whirred, projecting a flickering hologram from a nearby console, a yawning black abyss, its edges writhing with tendrils of void that seemed to stare back. The crew flinched, their weapons still trained on Nira, but Kael's scarred hand tightened on his rifle, his mind wrestling with her words. The hollow core wasn't a tomb, it was a prison, and humanity its wardens. "You expect us to believe this?" he growled, his voice thick with the weight of battles fought for lesser truths. Nira's gaze didn't waver. "You've seen the pods. You've felt this place. It doesn't lie." Tas, his face flushed with panic, jabbed his rifle toward Nira. "She's spinning tales to save herself," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Humans are gone. Extinct. This is a trick." Before Kael could intervene, the Echo's liquid metal form rippled, its humanoid shape solidifying further, its surface glinting like polished obsidian. Its multi-layered voice boomed, filling the chamber with a chorus of judgment. "The woman speaks truth. The Devourer is bound by the genetic code of the gatekeepers. Their slumber is the galaxy's shield." The words silenced Tas, his rifle trembling in his grip. Kyle's optic eye scanned the Echo, its form now stable but radiating menace, as if it could unravel their very existence with a thought. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado crumbling under the weight of something ancient and unyielding. The Iron Veil's comms crackled, shattering the tension. A council enforcer's voice barked through, sharp and commanding. Vexis, you've breached core protocol. Surrender or be eradicated. Zorathian warships are en route. Kael's jaw tightened, his mind racing. The council had always hidden something. But this? He glanced at the chamber's walls, their black fluid now seeping faster, pooling at their feet. Outside, through a translucent viewport, he saw the void light up with the crimson glow of Zorathian warships, their angular hulls slicing through the darkness, encircling the hollow core. Their weapons charged, plasma cannons humming with lethal intent. Kael's crew scrambled to defensive positions, but the Echo moved first. Its arm elongated, morphing into a gleaming blade, 5 feet long, its edge shimmering with unnatural sharpness. The lie must be excised, it intoned, its gaze fixed on the approaching fleet. Nyra stepped forward, her voice low but piercing. The Echo was built to destroy deception, even if it means erasing those who forgot humanity's sacrifice. Her words carried a grief that made Kael's chest tighten, a reminder of his own guilt, the lives he'd taken in a past he couldn't outrun. You've started something you can't stop, she added, her black eyes flicking to the Echo's blade. Kael barked orders, signaling the crew to retreat to the Iron Veil. We're leaving now! But as they reached the docking bay, the ship's controls flickered, screens going dark. The Echo's voice echoed through the comms, chillingly calm. The truth requires witnesses. You will not flee. The ship's engines sputtered, locked by an unseen force, stranding them within the hollow core's grasp. Outside, the Zorathian warships opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the void, their blue-white arcs illuminating the structure's writhing surface. But the shots never landed. They dissolved mid-flight, consumed by an invisible barrier around the hollow core. The Echo surged forward, its form splitting into a swarm of metallic tendrils that lashed out at the nearest warship. The vessel, a 300-meter behemoth of Zorathian engineering, crumpled like paper, its hull torn apart in seconds. Sparks and debris scattered into the void, a silent explosion against the starless black. Kael's crew watched, frozen, as the Echo dismantled the fleet with surgical precision, its movements fluid yet relentless. What is that thing? Lyra whispered, her medic's composure shattered. Kael's optic eyes zoomed in on the carnage, his mind grappling with the reality. The Echo wasn't just a weapon, it was judgment incarnate. Nyra grabbed Kael's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You've unleashed it, she said, her voice a mix of accusation and despair. The Echo doesn't distinguish friend from foe. It sees only lies. Kael pulled away, his scarred face hardening. Then we make it see us as allies, he said, though doubt gnawed at him. The chamber shook, the wall's black fluid now cascading like a waterfall, forming patterns that pulsed with intent. The remaining Zorathian ships retreated, their signals fading, but Kael knew the council wouldn't stop. They'd send more, fleets, armies, whatever it took to bury this secret again. He turned to Nyra, his voice low, urgent. If humanity's the lock, what happens if you all wake up? Nyra's lips pressed thin, her black eyes glinting with something like fear. The Devourer walks free, she said, and the galaxy burns. The Echo's tendrils retracted, its form coalescing back into a humanoid shape, its blade arm glinting under the chamber's eerie light. It turned toward Kael's crew, its featureless face somehow conveying judgment. The infection spreads, it said, its voice a chorus of whispers. All who deny the gatekeepers must be cleansed. Kael raised his rifle, not to fire but to signal defiance. We're not your enemy, he said, his words more hope than certainty. The Echo tilted its head as if weighing his soul. The chamber's walls pulsed faster, the black fluid now ankle-deep, and Kael felt the weight of a truth he wasn't ready to face. Nyra's voice broke the silence, soft but resolute. You can't outrun this, Vexis. The truth always catches up. The hollow core trembled as the Echo carved through the Zorathian fleet, its liquid metal tendrils slicing hulls with surgical precision. Each warship, a marvel of 300-meter engineering, crumpled into glowing debris, scattering across the starless void like embers of a dying fire. Kael Vexis watched through the Iron Veil's viewport, his optic eye whirring, capturing every calculated strike. The Echo moved like a predator, its form shifting between humanoid and a writhing mass, untouchable by the plasma barrages. Naira Sol stood beside him, her gray skin paler under the chamber's pulsing light, her black eyes fixed on the slaughter. "It was built to kill the Devourer," she said, her voice heavy with centuries of guilt. "But we turned it into a guardian of lies, programmed to erase anything that threatens humanity's sacrifice." Kyle's scarred hand clenched, his mind reeling. The Echo wasn't just a weapon, it was a judge, and the galaxy its courtroom. "Then why is it killing our allies?" he demanded, his voice raw. Nira's lips twitched, a ghost of sorrow. "Because the truth is a blade, and it cuts without mercy." The crew's unease boiled into chaos. Tass, his rifle shaking, swung toward Nira. "She's the problem. Kill her, and this stops." Lyra, the medic, grabbed his arm, her voice desperate. "She's our only way out. We need her." Kyle stepped between them, his red bronze armor glinting, his presence a wall against their panic. "Enough!" he roared, his optic eye scanning their faces. "We don't turn on each other." But the doubt gnawed at him. Nira's truth was a poison, spreading cracks through his team. Before he could speak, the Iron Veil's hull groaned, a deafening clang echoing through the ship. Alarms blared, screens flashing red. A Zorathian strike team had breached the docking bay, their boots pounding against the metal floor. Leading them was Vade, a lean figure in black Zorathian armor, his face etched with the same battle scars Kael bore from their shared past. "Kael!" Vade's voice crackled over the comms, cold but familiar. "Hand over the woman. The council will spare you." Kael's jaw tightened, memories of their old brotherhood flashing, nights spent planning rebellions, only for Vade to stay loyal when Kael deserted. "You know I don't bend," Kael replied, his rifle raised, his crew fanning out behind him. Vade's strike team, 10 elite soldiers clad in sleek exosuits, advanced, their plasma blades humming. "Last chance," Vade said, his eyes narrowing. "She's not worth dying for." Nira stepped forward, her self-mending robe shimmering with DNA patterns, her voice cutting through the tension. "You've forgotten us, but we never forgot you." The words hung, heavy, as Vade's face twitched, a flicker of doubt. Kael seized the moment, signaling his crew. Plasma bolts erupted, lighting the bay in bursts of blue-white fire. Vade's team returned fire, their blades slicing through the Iron Veil's walls, sparks raining down as the fight turned brutal. The Echo returned mid-battle, its form coalescing from the chamber's black fluid, its blade arm now a scythe 3 meters long. It moved faster than thought, tendrils piercing Vade's soldiers with horrifying ease. One by one they fell, their armor shredded, bodies crumpling without a scream. Kael's crew froze, their weapons useless against the entity's wrath. But the Echo paused before Vade, its featureless face tilting as if reading his soul. "Infection present," it intoned, its multi-layered voice reverberating. A tendril lashed out, not to kill, but to touch Vade's forehead. He screamed, collapsing, his eyes wide with visions no one else could see. "I remember," Vade gasped, his voice breaking. "The humans, they gave everything." The Echo straightened, its form shimmering. "Subject cleanse," it declared, leaving Vade trembling on the floor, alive but changed. Nira staggered, her hand clutching her chest, her gray skin flickering like a failing hologram. Kael caught her as she fell, her black eyes dimming. "The pod," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's failing. I wasn't meant to wake. Not yet." Kael's optic eye scanned her, detecting a faint pulse from the chamber's central console, linked to her pod. The realization hit him like a blade. Her awakening wasn't an accident. Someone or something had planned this. "Who triggered you?" he demanded, his voice low, urgent. Nira's lips parted, but no answer came, only a faint shudder as her form wavered. The chamber's walls pulsed violently, black fluid cascading like a storm, mirroring her collapse. The Echo turned, its scythe arm retracting, its gaze fixed on Kael. "The truth requires sacrifice," it said, its voice a chorus of inevitability. Cal hoisted Nira, her weight slight but heavy with purpose, and barked orders to his crew. "Secure the bay. We're not done here." Lyra rushed to Nyra, scanning her with a med device, her face grim. "She's tied to the core's systems. If her pod fails, she's gone." Tass, still shaken, muttered, "This is her fault, all of it." Kyle silenced him with a glare, his mind racing. Vade's screams echoed behind them, his newfound memories a warning of what the Echo could do. The Council's warships regrouped outside, their signals faint but growing stronger. Kyle knew they'd strike again, harder, to bury this truth forever. Nyra's hand gripped his arm, her voice a fading whisper. "You can't stop it, Kael, but you can choose what it means." The chamber shook, the black fluid rising, and Kyle felt the weight of a galaxy on the verge of unraveling, its secrets bleeding out with every pulse of the hollow core. The hollow core's chamber pulsed with a rhythm that felt like a countdown, its walls bleeding black fluid that pooled around Kael Vexis's boots. Nyra Soul, her gray skin flickering like a dying star, leaned against a console, her black eyes locked on Kyle. "I woke myself," she confessed, her voice a fragile thread woven with resolve. "I searched for someone brave enough to change fate. You, Kyle, were the signal's answer." Her words struck him, heavy as the guilt he carried from a lifetime of blood. Before he could respond, the Echo loomed closer, its liquid metal form rippling with menace, its multi-layered voice booming through the chamber. "You have violated the Covenant," it declared, its featureless face fixed on Nira. "You must be excised to preserve the truth." Cal stepped forward, his red bronze armor clanking, his rifle raised. "She's with us," he growled, his optic eye whirring as it tracked the Echo's shifting form. The Echo moved faster than thought, its arm morphing into a whip-like tendril that struck Kael's chest, sending him crashing against the chamber's wall. Pain seared through his ribs, but he staggered to his feet, his crew scrambling to cover him. Nira's voice cut through the chaos, steady despite her fading form. "We are not victims," she said, her black eyes burning into Kael's. "We are the gatekeepers. But this gate, it's about to open." From her robes, she produced a small, ancient device, its surface etched with spiraling DNA patterns, glowing faintly with an inner light. She pressed it into Kael's scarred hand, her touch cold yet urgent. "This will wake them all," she whispered. "Every human, every lock." Kael's fingers closed around the device, its weight deceptively light for the burden it carried. He glanced at his crew, Lyra's face pale with fear, Tass's rifle trembling, knowing this choice could doom them all. The Echo surged forward, its form splitting into a dozen gleaming tendrils, each tipped with a blade that shimmered like liquid starlight. "The lie ends now," it intoned, its voice a chorus of judgment. Nira raised a hand, her body glowing with a faint silver light, and the chamber's walls pulsed in response. A wave of energy erupted from her, forcing the Echo's tendrils to recoil, their tips sizzling as if burned. "I am the last key," Nira said, her voice breaking. "But I can't hold it long." The effort drained her, her form flickering faster, gray skin dissolving into motes of light. Kael shouted her name, lunging forward, but the Echo's tendrils lashed out again, slicing through the air inches from his face. Nira's black eyes met his one last time, her voice a fading whisper. "Choose, Kael. Keep the lie, or face the truth." With a final pulse of light, her body crumbled into ash, scattering across the chamber's floor like stardust. The Iron Veil's comms crackled, a galactic council broadcast cutting through the silence. "All forces converge on the hollow core. Destroy it at all costs." The voice was cold, final, carrying the weight of a galaxy desperate to bury its past. Outside, the void flared with the crimson glow of a new Zorathian fleet, their warships, dozens, each over 400 meters long, forming a blockade around the structure. Their plasma cannons charged, humming with destructive intent. Kael's crew shouted warnings, their voices drowned by the chamber's growing hum, the black fluid now knee-deep, swirling with patterns that seemed to whisper secrets. Kyle stared at the device in his hand, its glow pulsing in time with the hollow core's heartbeat. His optic eye scanned it, detecting intricate circuits tied to the chamber's systems, a key to unleash a truth no one was ready for. His crew watched him, their faces a mix of dread and hope, knowing his choice would reshape the galaxy. Kael's mind raced, Nira's words echoing against his own mantra. The truth will chase you, no matter how far you run. He saw Vade, still crumpled in the docking bay, his mind shattered by memories of humanity's sacrifice. He saw the pods, millions of humans locked in eternal slumber, their DNA the only thing holding back a cosmic horror. The Echo stood motionless, its tendrils retracted, watching him with an intensity that felt like judgment. Choose, it said, its voice softer now, almost expectant. Kael's scarred hand hovered over the device's glowing surface, his heart pounding. The Council's warships fired, their plasma bolts dissolving against the holocore's barrier. But each strike shook the chamber, cracks forming in the walls. Lyra grabbed his arm, her voice desperate. Captain, if you do this, there's no going back. Tass, his fear turning to rage, shouted, We'll all die! Kael's optic eye flickered, replaying Nira's final moments, her sacrifice a spark that ignited something in him. He had run from truth before, deserting the Council to escape his past, but no more. His thumb pressed the device's surface, a soft click echoing in the chamber. The pods lit up, their translucent surfaces glowing brighter, a chorus of hisses filling the air as millions began to stir. The Echo's form shimmered, its voice a whisper of approval. The truth awakens. The chamber shook violently, black fluid surging upward, and the Council's broadcast screamed through the comms, their panic palpable. Target the core! Fire everything! Kael stood firm, the device still in his hand, its glow fading as the hollow core's walls pulsed faster, a heartbeat no longer restrained. He had chosen truth, and whatever came next, salvation or annihilation, was a burden he'd carry alone. The hollow core shuddered, its walls erupting in a symphony of hisses as thousands of translucent pods cracked open, their glowing fluids spilling like liquid starlight. Humans stirred within, their movements slow, deliberate, eyes blinking against the chamber's eerie light. Kael Vexis stood amidst the chaos, his red bronze armor slick with black fluid, his optic eye whirring as it tracked the awakening. The air grew thick, charged with a hum that vibrated in his bones, as if the structure itself were screaming. The Echo, its liquid metal form towering 10 feet, let out a deafening wail, its multi-layered voice shaking the chamber. Infection has spread, it declared, its featureless face pulsing with menace. Commencing purge. Its body shattered into a storm of jagged shards, swirling like a cyclone, slicing through the air toward both the Zorathian strike teams and the newly awakened humans. Kael ducked, pulling Lyra down as a shard grazed her arm, drawing blood. It doesn't care who we are, he shouted, his voice raw. It's killing everyone. Kyle's crew scrambled for cover, their plasma rifles firing uselessly as the Echo's shards absorbed the bolts, growing sharper, faster. The Zorathian soldiers, their black exosuits glinting, fell in droves, their screams cut short as metal tore through flesh and armor alike. A human, barely awake, stumbled from his pod, only to be impaled by a shard, his body collapsing in a spray of blood. Kael's optic eye locked onto the Echo, its form reforming into a humanoid shape, its blade arm now a writhing mass of spikes. Truth must be preserved, it intoned, advancing without hesitation. Kael's mind raced, Nira's final words echoing. The Echo saw lies everywhere, and now, with humanity awakening, it saw only chaos to cleanse. He grabbed Tass, who was frozen, staring at the carnage. Move, or we're next, Kael barked, shoving him toward a console for cover. The chamber's black fluid surged, now waist-deep, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed to whisper accusations. Amid the chaos, a pod near Kael hissed louder, its occupant stepping out with a calm that defied the storm. He was an older man, his hair silver, his skin marked with faint circuit-like scars, clad in a tattered robe etched with the same DNA motifs as Nira's. His eyes, sharp and gray, met Kael's with an authority that silenced the din. I am Elias, he said, his voice steady, resonant. Chief architect of the Hollow Core? Kael's optic eye scanned him, detecting no fear, only a weary resolve. Elias gestured to the chamber, its walls now cracking under the Echo's assault. The Devourer isn't a monster, he said, stepping over a fallen Zorathian. It's a cosmic consciousness, misunderstood. We feared it, so we built the Echo to make it our enemy. Kyle's scarred hand tightened on his rifle, his mind grappling with the revelation. You're saying we created the threat? He demanded, dodging another shard that embedded itself in the wall behind him. Elias nodded, his gaze distant, as if seeing the past. Our fear turned the Devourer into a myth of destruction. The Echo was our failsafe, programmed to enforce that lie. Outside, the Zorathian fleet faltered, their warships drifting aimlessly as their crews succumbed to memories flooding back. Humanity's sacrifice, buried for 50,000 years. Kyle's comms crackled with their screams, some Zorathians turning their weapons on themselves, unable to bear the guilt. One ship, a 500-meter dreadnought, exploded in a silent burst of light, its debris raining against the Hollow Core's barrier. Kyle's crew watched, horrified, as the galaxy began to unravel under the weight of truth. Lyra, her hands shaking, whispered, "They're remembering, and it's killing them." Kyle turned to Elias, his voice urgent. "Can we stop the Echo?" Elias's eyes darkened, his scarred face unreadable. "No," he said, his voice heavy with finality, "but we can redirect its purpose." He moved to a console, his fingers dancing over its glowing symbols, pulling up schematics of the Echo's core programming. The chamber shook violently, the Echo's storm of shards circling closer, its voice a relentless chant. All lies must end. Cal shielded Elias, his armor sparking as a shard grazed his shoulder. "What's the plan?" he shouted, his optic eye scanning the schematics, lines of code tied to the Hollow Core's systems, pulsing in sync with the awakening pods. Elias's hands trembled, but his voice held firm. "We rewrite its target, make it see the Devourer, not us, as the lie." The idea was insane, but Kel saw no other way. The Echo's shards tightened their orbit, slicing through pods and soldiers alike, indifferent to the blood pooling with the black fluid. Kel's crew rallied, Lyra dragging a wounded human to safety, Tas firing wildly at the Echo's formless mass. The Zorathian survivors, their minds broken by memories, staggered toward the Iron Veil, begging for salvation. Kael ignored them, his focus on Elias. "Do it," he said, his voice a low growl. "Whatever it takes." Elias's fingers moved faster, rewriting code as the chamber's walls began to collapse. Chunks of organic metal crashing down. The Echo paused, its shards slowing, as if sensing the change. "Truth is absolute," it said, its voice softer, uncertain. Kyle's optic eye caught a flicker in its form, a hesitation. The black fluid surged higher, now chest-deep, its whispers growing louder, accusing. Elias looked up, his gray eyes meeting Kyle's. "If this works, the Devourer will see us," he said, "and we'll have to face what we've made." Kyle nodded, his hand on the ancient device Nyra had given him, its glow now faint but steady. The truth was free, and it was tearing the galaxy apart. The Hollow Core's heart lay deep within its labyrinth, a chamber where the walls pulsed with a light that wasn't light at all, black yet radiant, swallowing the air itself. Kael Vexis followed Elias through twisting corridors, his red bronze armor slick with the ever-rising black fluid, now lapping at his thighs. Elias, his silver hair matted with sweat, moved with a purpose that belied his frail frame, his circuit-scarred hands clutching a console as they entered the central chamber. At its core hung a sphere of dark light, 10 feet across, its surface writhing like a living void, tethered to the walls by veins of organic metal. "This is the link to the Devourer," Elias said, his gray eyes reflecting the sphere's unnatural glow. "The Echo is just a tool. If we rewrite its directive from purging lies to freeing truth, it'll force the Devourer to wake, not to destroy, but to reveal itself." Kael's optic eye whirred, scanning the sphere, its energy signature unlike anything he'd seen, a pulse that felt like a heartbeat from beyond the stars. "And if you're wrong?" Kyle asked, his voice rough, his scarred hand gripping his rifle. Elias's lips tightened. "Then we've doomed the galaxy." Before Kael could press further, the chamber shook, the walls splitting as the echo erupted through, its liquid metal form now a towering colossus, 15 feet tall, its surface bristling with jagged spikes. Its multi-layered voice roared, "Truth cannot be altered." A spike shot forward, piercing Elias's chest with a sickening crunch, pinning him to the console. Blood sprayed, mixing with the black fluid, as Elias gasped, his gray eyes wide but unflinching. "Take it!" he choked, pressing a small glowing chip into Kyle's hand, its surface etched with DNA motifs. Kyle caught him as he slumped, his optic eye scanning the chip, a program to override the Echo's core. "Go," Elias whispered, his voice fading as his body stilled, the light in his eyes dimming like a dying star. The Echo loomed closer, its spikes retracting, reforming into a clawed hand that reached for Kael. He dove behind the console, the black fluid splashing around him, and scrambled to a nearby terminal, its interface glowing with ancient symbols. Kael jammed the chip into the terminal's slot, his fingers trembling as the system hummed to life. The screen flickered, displaying a cascade of code, but a red alert flashed. "Prime Architect biometric confirmation required." Kyle's heart sank. Nira was gone, her body ash, and Elias now lay dead at his feet. No one else could authorize the override. The Echo's clawed hand seized Kael's throat, lifting him effortlessly, its featureless face inches from his. "You are infection," it intoned, its grip tightening, crushing the air from his lungs. Kael's optic eye flickered, his vision blurring, his scarred hands clawing uselessly at the metal. The chamber's dark sphere pulsed faster, its light bleeding into the walls, as if the Devourer itself were stirring. Kael's crew, trapped in the outer corridors, screamed over the comms, their voices drowned by the sound of collapsing metal and the Echo's relentless chant. "Truth is absolute." Then a voice cut through the chaos, Nira's, soft but unmistakable, emanating from the chip. "Confirmation, Kael Vexis, access granted." The Echo froze, its grip loosening, its featureless face tilting as if struck by an unseen force. Its eyes, previously void, flared a strange electric blue, pulsing in time with the sphere's heartbeat. Kael dropped to the ground, gasping, his optic eye scanning the terminal as the override code began to rewrite the Echo's directives. The chamber's walls shuddered, the black fluid surging upward, now chest-high, its whispers forming words Kael couldn't decipher. The Echo's form wavered, its spikes retracting, its blue eyes flickering as if caught between purpose and confusion. "Truth, redefined," it murmured, its multi-layered voice fracturing, no longer unified. Kael staggered to his feet, the chip's glow fading in his hand, Nira's presence lingering like a ghost in the machine. Outside, the Zorathian fleet's remnants burned, their warships reduced to glowing husks as their crews succumbed to the weight of recovered memories. The Iron Veil's comms crackled with Lyra's voice, frantic. "Captain, the humans, they're waking faster. The core's unstable." Kael's optic eye scanned the chamber, the dark sphere now pulsing erratically, its veins snapping one by one. The Devourer was stirring, its presence a pressure in his mind, vast and incomprehensible. He clutched the chip, Nira's final act tying him to a choice he hadn't fully grasped. Elias's words echoed. The Devourer wasn't a monster, but a consciousness humanity had feared into enmity. The Echo stepped back, its blue eyes locked on Kael, no longer attacking but watching, waiting. "What did you do to it?" Kyle demanded, his voice hoarse. But the terminal screen went dark, the override incomplete. The sphere's light flared, casting shadows that moved like living things, and Kyle felt the galaxy teetering on the edge of something vast, something he'd unleashed with a single press of a button. Kael's crew burst into the chamber, Lyra dragging Tass, whose face was pale with terror. "It's changing!" Tass shouted, pointing at the Echo, its form now shifting slower, its blue eyes pulsing with uncertainty. The black fluid climbed higher, its surface reflecting the sphere's dark light, and the chamber's walls began to crack, exposing a void beyond that seemed to stare back. Kyle's scarred hand tightened around his rifle, his mind racing. Nira's voice, her sacrifice, had given him a chance, but the cost was rising with every pulse of the sphere. "We're not done," he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. The Echo's blue eyes flickered, its voice a whisper. Truth seeks a new vessel. Kael didn't know if it meant him, the Devourer, or something worse, but the chamber's heartbeat was now a roar, and the galaxy was running out of time. The hollow core's chamber pulsed with a dying rhythm, its black fluid receding as the Echo stood motionless, its blue eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Its liquid metal form shimmered, no longer jagged, its multi-layered voice softening into a singular, almost serene tone. "New directive. Liberation," it declared, and a wave of energy surged from its core, a ripple of light that tore through the chamber's walls and into the void beyond. Kael Vexis, his red bronze armor scarred and dented, felt the pulse ripple through his bones, his optic eye flickering as it registered the signal's reach, spanning light years, touching every corner of the galaxy. Planets, stations, and fleets faltered as the wave hit, forcing every sentient being to remember. Humanity's sacrifice, the 50,000-year lie, the truth of the Devourer. Kael's comms erupted with chaos, screams, prayers, and static from distant worlds. "It's breaking them," Lyra whispered, her medic's hands trembling as she clutched a console, her eyes wide with dread. Kyle's scarred face tightened, his mind racing. The Echo wasn't killing now, it was unveiling, and the galaxy wasn't ready. Across the stars, civilizations crumbled under the weight of memory. On the Zorathian homeworld, a gleaming planet of towering spires 3 miles high, citizens clawed at their temples, their minds flooded with visions of humanity's slumber. Ships crashed, their pilots frozen by guilt, unable to reconcile their forgotten debt. Kael's optic eye caught fragmented broadcasts, a Clithian governor weeping, a Vrenar fleet turning on itself, their crews muttering about gatekeepers. The chamber's dark sphere, the link to the Devourer, pulsed erratically, its black light spilling into the void outside. Kyle saw it through a cracked viewport, a vast abyss opening, not a black hole but a tear in reality, its edges writhing with tendrils that seemed to watch. The Devourer was waking, but it didn't lash out. It observed, its presence a weight in Kael's mind, like a disappointed creator surveying a flawed experiment. "It doesn't want to destroy," Kyle said aloud, the realization hitting him like a plasma bolt. "It wants to be understood." The Echo's form began to dissolve, its metal softening into a radiant mist that drifted toward the sphere. "The lie is broken," it said, its voice now a whisper, fading like a distant echo. It melted into the chamber's light, leaving only silence in its wake. Kyle's crew stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their faces pale. Tass, his bravado gone, muttered, "What did we do?" Lyra pointed to the viewport where the Zorathian fleet, once a blockade of 40 warships, drifted aimlessly, their cannons silent. A new broadcast crackled through the Iron Veil's comms, the Galactic Council's voice trembling, stripped of its arrogance. "We acknowledge our error," it said, the words heavy with shame. "Humanity's sacrifice is known. We surrender to the truth." Kael's optic eye whirred, scanning the signal source. A dying council station, its leaders broken by the same memories tearing through the galaxy. The chamber's pods glowed brighter, thousands of humans stepping out, their eyes wide, disoriented, yet alive with purpose. They gathered around Kyle, their faces a mix of fear and resolve, their ancient robes shimmering with DNA motifs. A woman, her hair gray like Elias's, met Kyle's gaze, her voice steady. "We're awake. What now?" Kyle's scarred hand tightened around the ancient device Nira had given him, its glow now gone, its purpose fulfilled. He looked out at the abyss beyond, the Devourer's presence still watching, not attacking, but waiting. "We face it," he said, his voice rough but firm. not as enemies, but as equals. The humans nodded, their numbers growing, filling the chamber with a quiet strength that felt like a tide turning. Kyle's optic eye scanned them, registering their vitals. Steady, alive, unbroken after 50,000 years. The galaxy outside burned with chaos. Broadcasts reported riots on Clithian worlds, their crystal cities shattering under the weight of truth. Vernar priests declared the end of their gods, their temples collapsing as followers fled. The Zorathian homeworld's spires flickered, their power grids failing as citizens grappled with memories of a debt they could never repay. Kyle's crew, battered but standing, looked to him for answers. Lyra's voice was soft, almost broken. Did we save them or doom them? Kael didn't answer, his gaze fixed on the abyss. The Devourer's tendrils moved slowly, not in aggression but curiosity, as if testing the galaxy's worth. He felt its presence in his mind. Not a threat, but a question. "You're not a monster," he muttered, his words barely audible. "You're us," reflected. The chamber's walls stabilized, the black fluid retreating, leaving only the glow of the pods and the sphere's fading light. The humans, now thousands strong, formed a silent army, their eyes on Kyle, waiting for his lead. His optic eye flickered, replaying Nyra's words. "The truth will chase you." He had run from it once, deserting the council, but now he stood at the heart of it. The galaxy was fracturing, its lies exposed, its people forced to see what they'd buried. The Devourer watched, its abyss a mirror for their failures. Kael stepped forward, his voice steady, addressing the humans. "We've woken you, but the fight's just begun. The Devourer's not our enemy, it's our judge." The woman nodded, her hand resting on a pod, her eyes fierce. "Then let's prove we're worth judging." The Iron Veil's sensors pinged, detecting new signals, human ships, ancient but functional, emerging from hidden docks within the hollow core. Kael's optic eye zoomed in, their hulls etched with the same DNA motifs, ready to face the galaxy's chaos. The Council's surrender echoed in his mind, a hollow victory against the truth's cost. The Devourer's abyss pulsed once, a final acknowledgement, then stilled, as if waiting for the galaxy to answer. Kael's scarred face hardened, his resolve unbroken. The lie was gone, but the truth was a heavier burden, and he'd carry it with every step into the unknown. The hollow core was gone, its organic metal lattice dissolved into the void, leaving only a faint shimmer where its heartbeat once pulsed. Kael Vexis stood on the Iron Veil's bridge, his red bronze armor scarred but unbowed, his optic eye scanning the starless expanse. The humans, thousands strong, crowded the ship's bays, their ancient robes glowing faintly, their eyes alight with a purpose 50,000 years dormant. Kael activated the ship's comms, his voice steady, carrying the weight of a truth uncovered. "This is Kael Vexis," he broadcast to the galaxy, his words echoing across light years. "Humanity didn't die, and we're not afraid anymore." The signal rippled out, a defiance that shook the stars, reaching every planet, every fleet, every soul grappling with the memories the Echo had unleashed. Lyra, her medic's hands steady now, nodded from her station. "They'll hear you, Captain," she said softly. Kyle's scarred face remained grim, knowing the cost of truth was only beginning. In his mind, a presence stirred, not a voice, but a weight, vast and ancient. The Devourer, its abyss no longer visible but still felt, spoke without words. "You chose truth. Now live with it." Then it withdrew, its tendrils receding from the galaxy's edge, leaving a silence that felt like judgment. Kael's optic eye flickered, replaying the moment the abyss had watched, not attacked, as if humanity's awakening was answer enough. Across the galaxy, other species faced their pass. The Zorathian homeworld, its 3-mile spires now dark, crumbled as its people rioted, unable to bear their complicity in humanity's erasure. Clithian crystal cities shattered, their leaders confessing to ancient betrayals before falling silent. Vernar priests burned their sacred texts, their gods exposed as lies built on human sacrifice. Kyle's comms buzzed with fragmented reports, civilizations collapsing, others rebuilding, all forced to confront a truth they'd buried for millennia. The Iron Veil's crew worked alongside the awakened humans, their hands moving with purpose, repairing systems and charting a new course. Cal walked among them, his boots clanging on the deck, his optic eye scanning their faces. Men and women who'd slept through eons, now forging a future without deception. A young human, her hair braided with DNA motif threads, approached him, her voice firm. "We build anew, Vexis. No more lies." Cal nodded, his scarred hand resting on the ancient device Nira had given him, now inert but heavy with meaning. The galaxy was fractured, its foundations shaken, but humanity stood tall, no longer gatekeepers, but architects of their own destiny. Cal looked out the viewport, where the hollow core's remnants had faded, leaving only the void. "Maybe extinction was the final lie we needed to break," he murmured, his voice low, almost lost in the hum of the ship. A soft ping broke the silence, the Iron Veil's main screen flashing. "New signal detected? Origin? Unknown." Kyle's optic eye zoomed in, analyzing the coordinates far beyond the galaxy's edge, in a region no chart had mapped. The crew paused, their eyes turning to him, a mix of fear and hope. Lyra's voice was steady. "Could be a trap, Captain, or something worse." Tass, his bravado tempered by truth, gripped his rifle but said nothing. The humans watched, their faces unreadable, trusting Kael to lead. He felt the weight of their gaze, the weight of Nyra's sacrifice, Elias's death, and the Echo's final act. His lips curved, a rare smile breaking through his scars. "We're done hiding," he said, his voice carrying a fire that hadn't burned in years. He turned to the helm. "Set course for the signal. Full warp." The Iron Veil hummed, its engines igniting as it prepared to leap into the unknown. The humans stood shoulder to shoulder, their ancient knowledge blending with the crew's battle-hardened resolve. The galaxy behind them burned and rebuilt, its people grappling with a truth that cut deeper than any blade. Kael's optic eye lingered on the viewport, the stars blurring as the ship entered warp, a streak of light against the void. The Devourer's presence lingered in his mind. Not a threat, but a challenge, a question unanswered. Humanity had awoken, and with it, a future no one could predict. The lie was broken, but the truth was a heavier burden, one Kael carried not as a curse, but as a legacy. As the Iron Veil vanished into the warp, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for what came next. Kael Vexis stood on the Iron Veil's bridge, the void stretching before him, a canvas of uncharted stars. Humanity awakened, worked alongside his crew, their faces etched with resolve, no longer bound by lies. The Devourer's presence lingered, a silent question in Kael's mind, urging him to forge a future where truth outweighed fear. The galaxy, fractured by its past, teetered between ruin and redemption. Kyle's scarred hand rested on the helm, his optic eye glinting. "No more hiding," he whispered. The ship leaped into warp, chasing a new signal, carrying humanity's legacy toward an unknown dawn, where truth would shape their destiny.